Everybody knows there's cars and manufacturers that clearly make vehicles that you wouldn't even dare driving outside a warranty, get rid of it 2 weeks before the warranty's expired. For example, Range Rovers, 7 Series BMWs, S-Class Mercedes-Benz. But there is a certain reality to some amazing vehicles, and some that you would never actually expect, with engines that are so reliable, so durable, that you can actually enjoy luxury car motoring outside a warranty. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
Honestly, if I was spending my hard-earned dollars, I would probably invest, or at least consider investing in this vehicle with this engine, because they're clearly a workhorse. Reliability is their middle name, and they're a lot of fun to drive too. They're very stylish, and you really can't go wrong with this. Obviously, we're talking about an Acura here. Right there, as you can see, the big A and the big bold grille in front. Beautiful new style of headlights on this generation. You've got the vents, and the overall style of the vehicle is very sporty on the front end. Of course, circle around, you've got lots of rock protection right there. This is the A spec, and of course, beautiful piano gloss black finishing on there. And look at all that sunroof on top. That's a beautiful touch. The interior is absolutely gorgeous as well, and quite frankly, I think this is nicer than many of its competitors. And over here, we notice a great little overhang, but here, this A spec, we also get this wonderful rear tail lights that are LEDs, and look at these rear exhaust tips. These are actual real tips, not like a lot of the manufacturers now just throw this plastic shroud on there. This Acura is a thing of beauty in the MDX. Shh, it's sleeping. Very good looking profile along the side, and it's got a third row right there for the little kidlings or others maybe you don't care a ton about. But basically, it's got a lot going for it. And this engine under here is bulletproof. Now, of course, this is a Honda product, and of course, Honda, Toyota, we know they all have great reputations for durability. Arguably, Lexus and Toyota are probably just marginal up, and even some of these older generation Acura MDXs have had a few transmission issues. Latest generation with this 10-speed auto seems to be much more bulletproof, and it's that naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6 engine is the one I would go for, because there's not many NA engines out there anymore. Yes, you can also scale up with the Type S 3-liter V6, which gets you about 355 horse, but this naturally aspirated version gets you 290. Plenty of punch for your daily commute. So the V6 engine under the hood here that I would highly recommend is the 3.5-liter designated as J35Y5. Workhorse, yes, it's ultra reliable. And honestly, it has a lot more punch. It feels punchier than what Lexus and Toyota is doing. The only difference is Lexus and Toyota give you an actual 2-tier fuel injection system. So you have port as well as direct injection, gets you the performance, economy, but also cleans the intake valves, and you have less problem of carbonization like you might with this vehicle, and like you have with 90% of the vehicles out there. A next engine that's a worthy mention started in 2008, and you'll find it in vehicles like the A7 by Audi, the Q7 as well, and on top of it, we have the Audi S5, like we see right there. S5 with the 4 rings of despair. What we have here is this beautiful 2-door little rocket ship on rails. Does have some nice little wings on there. An interior that's second to none with the Q-stitch. Of course, we got the big oversized glass panel on top. Gorgeous 2-tone mirrors. And look, more badging to tell you this vehicle's slightly stepped up. So that 3-liter V6 has been a very popular choice in the Audi world. Yeah, it hasn't necessarily been without its faults. Get past a few of those little issues, and you've definitely got yourself a hot rod that's relatively easy to repair. Now, it's not cheap, no luxury car is, but it's definitely good performer, good economy, and definitely worth mentioning. So we're definitely talking about the Audi 3-liter TFSI engine that in different forms of tune can make anywhere from 300 to 444 horsepower and 325 to 443 pound-feet of torque respectively. Quite frankly, with some of the 2-liter oil burners that Audi has seen in the past, this one is certainly one of their more robust drivetrains. And really, the only things to really mention that are typical notables, and a lot of them are actually really more related to maintenance anyway. We're talking about spark plugs, ignition coils, which are more or less maintenance items. We also talk about carbon fouling or carbon buildup in the intake, and a lot of that comes because it is a direct injected engine. Oil pressure switch failure, I mean, that's not uncommon, or leaks, and water pumps are another area that you have to keep an eye out for. But generally speaking, it's a very robust engine worth the time, worth the trouble, and certainly if you want the Audi brand, that's definitely your choice. And the next one is this vehicle right here specifically, but it's the drivetrain under the hood here. But what are we looking at? Because the engine actually is configured in many vehicles under this space. We look right here, we're dealing with a BMW, and this is an X5, so you can certainly get that engine. You can also get it in X3, X6, X4. You can as well get it in many sedans and coupes, 340, 440, 540, 640, and you get the gist. Everything that has that 40 designation, as you see right there, 40 designation on these cars means that's the engine that you probably want to buy if you're worried about reliability and a used BMW. Clearly you have some great exhaust tips down there, as you see, slightly fake, but it kind of works, although there's a little carbon buildup right in there. Because these are direct injected engines, you will definitely have a little bit extra carbon building up in the intake. You can see you get great LED taillights on these vehicles, beautiful laser cut rims. Look at the contours on the door panels here, it's gorgeous. Flip away mirrors, as well as a big sunroof on top. Down in the front you have the laser LEDs, which give you extended range, as well as a big opening there with the flappers that slide depending on the load that you need. Inlets and vents to give it a little extra aggressive look, as well as flow air through the system. Yes, you have nice color keyed fender flares and other little accents. BMW definitely owns the infotainment system with their iDrive system. There's very few as nearly as good or as intuitive. The interior wears very well as well. But I have to say, no two BMWs are alike, and I have to be very explicit here. If you're dealing with the N54, for example, the 6-cylinder turbo engines that came out around 2007, scrap it, junk, full of problems. The N55 after it, slightly better, still slightly problematic, still missed the mark. The B58 here is definitely the creme de la creme of their 6-cylinder engines. It's also a turbo engine, twin scroll, single turbo in these engines, and they're very tunable, meaning they can actually hold up. Why? The bottom end has been beefed up. The crank, the case is also more solid. We have better fueling system here as well, capable of more output. There's also better intercooling and cooling, because now we have this heat encapsulation system, and the heat encapsulation basically reduces the amount of high and low temperature swings within the engine, and it allows it to maintain that temperature in a much smaller window. So in other words, it's that high and low that definitely takes a toll on a lot of plastic parts and other engines, which every car nowadays, just look at that, for example, all has a lot of plastic. But BMW is taking that into account with heat encapsulation, better top end, better performance, turbocharging, better tuning. The gearbox and the ZF 8-speed is ridiculously reliable. And even one of the issues that a lot of these cars had was the electric water pump and thermostat. They've scrapped it. They've put in a mechanical water pump now to actually cause you less problems, because the old water pumps electric would only go about 50 or 60,000 miles and you'd have to change them. The mechanical one is a little easier to change and a slightly lower cost as well. Yes, you can still get a few of the issues potentially: oil filter housing, gasket leaks, valve cover gasket with a lot of miles and a lot of age, pan gasket leaks occasionally, but generally speaking, every aspect that was weak on the last engine is much better on this drivetrain. So if I can actually tell you, if you're looking for any vehicle in the BMW lineup, this is their engine that's most durable in modern day lineup. Skip the V8s, the 4.4s have a lot of performance, but they're problematic. The 4 cylinders, the B48 is also decent, but a little strained, and it's, even though it's on the same platform as modular as the B58, the B58's a better balance of performance, economy, and durability. So the B58 is the engine of choice for BMW. So if you're looking for a B58 engine in the BMW world that has this closed deck design for durability, remember, it starts in 2016 and newer. And the next bulletproof engine you can find that's guaranteed for a lot of reliability and a lot of miles is what's under that hood there. Of course, BMW often has had a lot of stumbles and trips, but this one here is actually quite reliable. With a little bit of maintenance, you can get a lot of miles out of these vehicles. And clearly we're talking about a vehicle, not any of the turbo engines, N54, N55, no good. We're talking about the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter up to 3 liter through different generations. We're also talking about 3 Series, X3, X4. 2004 to 2015 is a generation you'll find that engine used in those particular models. I mean, you could tell this is this particular generation, a little bit older. The handles give that away, as do the headlights. You could tell that's older generation, although this is the facelift version of the headlights for this generation. We're talking about the E90, E92, and E93 generation of 3 Series BMWs. This one here is the wagon or the touring version. Has some great roof racks there. Big sunroof on top. Of course, the leather interior is just spick and span, but it's that naturally aspirated straight 6 engine called the N52 that delivers on the performance. Sure, a little bit of maintenance. You can get the odd oil filter housing, coolant leak. Change your hoses, stay on top of your coolant issues, as well as valve cover gaskets and pan gaskets. And this car is still a relatively straightforward, easy, naturally aspirated engine to maintain. Good for a lot of miles, no excessive heat. And I've personally owned a car from this generation, and I can speak to that. Gas it up and go, gas it up and go. Just keep driving it, it rarely breaks. Occasionally you'll have a cooling system woe, just take care of it. Remember, variable valve timing, magnesium was another point worth mentioning. It's a great new breakthrough engine and earned many awards for its overall durability, reliability, and breakthrough technology. My personal favorite is go with a 330i that gives you the best performance at 270 horsepower, straight six, fun, get it with a manual gearbox, you're good to go. Ultra reliable, easy to maintain. Well, guess what? Another relatively legendary engine, known for its durability, simplicity, and relatively small number of typical repairs you're going to expect in this car right here, which is a Nissan product, but it's Infiniti, which is their upscale brand. It doesn't get enough recognition for the durability and the fun factor, because here you have a 3.7 liter V6 engine, makes about 330 horsepower, came out around 2008, and it's been around a long time at Q50, Q60, as well as the G37, which is highly popular in the young tuner crowds. What's the engine we're talking about here? Well, this is the VQ37 VHR engine that you're finding tucked under that hood right there. Yes, let's take a quick look around. Yes, Infiniti has some great detail like that. They do have the LED headlights, and of course you can't go wrong, you can't mistake, because the 3.7 is the giveaway. Of course, fold-away mirrors with LED strips, and the interior is actually quite nicely bolstered, put together solidly, and it's a fun place to ride. Of course, right there you have a sunroof and nice two-tone handles on there. Love that little detail with that chrome. So it's a great engine, durable, but there's only a couple things to think about. The valley oil gasket, you could get potentially oil leaks up there. Catalytic converters are also known to potentially let go, as do water pumps can let go. Watch for coolant leaks. Catalytic converter issues, check engine lights, O2 sensors, don't neglect those. As well, like I said, basically just watch for oil coolant leaks, but generally relatively easy to fix in most cases. One of the most impressive, powerful, economical, and reliable luxury engine that you'll find in many vehicles. For example, the Lexus ES350 right here. Over here, we also have the Lexus IS350, also carries a wonderful 3.5 liter V6, as does this beautiful RC350 packaged right here, also carries a 311 horsepower V6 under that hood. Can't forget about this beautiful unit here as well. We're talking about the Lexus RC350, and as you can see, this is the outgoing older generation vehicle here. You'll notice by the schnoz, the grille actually goes a little higher versus the new style grille where the grille comes down. It looks like a broken nose. Great for comparison. This one here has hybrid drivetrains, turbo 4-cylinder engines coupled up with electrification. This one here has that naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6 that makes around 300 ponies. Yes, it's no surprise that Toyota and Lexus build cars with engines that last a long time, and when they finally build one, they don't change them regularly. They keep refining them, making them better, making them more durable, and as a result, they wind up with an engine that's one of their workhorse, most dependable, most legendary, and most reliable engines, called the 2GR FSE. And that engine can also be found in vehicles like the Toyota Camry and any other vehicle that would warrant the larger drivetrains. That's right. In fact, Toyota has built an engine with direct injection, port injection, two-stage, so you don't have actual carbon buildup on the valves. It's ruthlessly reliable variable valve timing. So whenever you're seeing on the older generation cars like the nomenclature like this, RX 350, on vehicles like this, as you can see with the RX, this is their mid-size SUV, that means you're carrying that wonderful glorified engine. They also happen to be coupled up to a torque converter automatic transmission, which means they're more durable, they're more reliable, as well as the drivetrain in general has much fewer issues to contend with. Lexus is also notoriously known for not overdoing the technology, staying on par, but as well, of course, keeping it reliable, and that goes throughout. You don't have problems with electrics like on the lights. You also don't go with oversized wheels with low profile tires that are going to cause you problems. One touch access in, so you have the technology, but it's reliable. The interior of these vehicles is quite durable as well, and even though the infotainment's slightly outdated and it's not quite on par with those from BMW and Mercedes, it works. You never hear a sunroof's falling off the rails like on a Benz, and they have beautiful touches and detail like that as well. You'll notice on the front, they do keep power and pace, of course with the technology, LEDs and the like. It's a beautiful vehicle. And I have to note, even with the most reliable of drivetrains, you have to expect a few common issues that will pop up. For example, idler pulleys. That's what keeps the tension on your serpentine belt. Yeah, that can be a problem, as can be the water water pump on some of these vehicles has been known to be a little bit of an issue. Just keep an eye on that weeping of coolant, as well as the VVTi lines. Everybody knows there was a bit of an internal bulletin to cover that off. That's the high pressure lines that operate the variable valve timing. Those have been known to burst or fail. There have been some upgraded lines, and most cars, by the time they're on the used car market, you'll find they've already been retrofitted. So very little to worry about in terms of durability. That is one of their literal workhorses and one of the most reliable engines in the luxury car segment. You could literally drive that for 300,000-400,000 miles. Another ultra reliable engine that comes in the way of Lexus, but they make many reliable, durable, long-lasting V8 engines. For example, what we're looking at here, this is the Lexus LX570, which is loosely based on the outgoing Toyota Tundra 5.7 liter V8. Absolutely a workhorse, good for almost 1 million miles if you take care of it as well. You can get a 5 liter V8 engine, naturally aspirated, high revving, 472 horsepower, high strung, high performance in the LC500. You can also find it in the IS500. Great engines, powerful, durable, packed with technology, and certainly long lasting. But it's none of those. It's actually the engine that you find in this particular SUV right here is the one that we're talking about. Well, what kind of model is this? Right there, we're looking at a GX460, as you can see right here. Ultra durable, built for long lasting durability. Yes, you can tow with this unit. You have this great rear assembly here with a different configuration on the tailgate, big bold tail lights, beefy tires off-road with high profile wheels for banging off the bumps and off-roading, step guard that helps the smaller people get in, and as well big beefy mirrors allows you to tow reliably and see what's behind you. The interior is very truck-like as well, so it's built for a lot of miles. But it's really not about all the knickknacks, electronics, technology, and the fact that it's great for off-roading. It is the Land Cruiser Prado, for example, in other markets. It's a workhorse, but that engine can chug along for miles, hundreds of thousands of miles. What is it? Well, the engine under the hood here is the 1UR FE. It's a 4.6 liter V8. You can find it in Lexus as well as many Toyota models. This can be found in the GS, LS, and GX as we see right here. So it's well utilized because of its performance. These engines, what makes them so durable is they've got a forged steel crankshaft, 6 balance weights, forged connecting rods with resin-coated aluminum pistons, as well as aluminum alloy cylinder heads, all great for durability as well as economy. You have separated cam housings for improvement on leaks and durability. It also utilizes what they call an acoustic control reduction or induction noise, as well as dual VVTi, which is the variable valve timing in these vehicles. You can also find electronic throttle control system, and yes, they use iridium tip spark plugs just to cap it all off. This is literally one of Lexus's workhorses, has all the technology to give it modern spunk. It's peppy, it's punchy, but not over the top. It's not a race engine like a Ferrari. This thing isn't going to blow its top once you hit 5,000 RPM. It's just built for long lasting durability, reliability. All you do is change the oil, change your filters, and you're good to go. Now the next engine specifically that can last a long time and could provide it somewhat durable, but if it weren't for some of the technology, just be careful with some of that. If you're buying a used car, make sure you do a good pre-purchase inspection. We're actually looking at the next generation, newer than this, but we're actually talking about the 4.6 to 4.7 liter V8 engines by Mercedes-Benz, which produce anywhere from about 400 up to about 577 horsepower, depending on which model and of course level of trim. But we're talking about the S-Class, CL, or the SL Class are the vehicles you'll typically find these engines in. Unfortunately, some of the older generation Mercedes-Benz have a little bit of an issue with something I like to call rust. As you can see, you'll find rust along the door panels there. You'll also find it along the fender right there. Sometimes you'll find it up along this section right there, or even in this space here. You can often find rust in a lot of places on a lot of these old Mercedes. Even sometimes up near the base of the A-pillar right there are areas that these vehicles can rust. But if you get a clean vehicle that's been well looked after, or it's not exposed to these yucky elements, then you can have a vehicle with an engine that lasts a long, long time. So the specific years we're talking about are 2010 to 2017 V8 engine that's actually internally called the M278 by Mercedes-Benz. Generally speaking, a very reliable engine in terms of Mercedes, at least what they offer up. And of course, you can get a ton of miles out of these. Now, these are not legendary like the Lexus GX or LX series engines, but these do quite well for a luxury import from Germany. These actually do quite well indeed. Some common issues you might actually find are timing chain tensioners, which seems to be a little bit of an issue with a lot of modern day Mercedes-Benz, valve wear, as well as camshaft wear. You might find some of that with higher miles, as well as camshaft adjusters. So it's all more or less top-end work, timing work, as well camshaft related. So if you had to and you hit 200, 300,000 miles and the engine's finally tired because the timing's off, it's running a little rough and ragged, then you can pull the heads off. If you have a good backyard mechanic, they can do the work for you. But the bottom line is these engines can actually go a long time. Just know that the service and maintenance costs are going to be a little higher than you'd find in Lexus world. But remember, this is a premium German luxury vehicle and it actually has a relatively reliable V8 engine. When you think performance cars and luxury all built up all into one, most people end up coming around to Porsche like we're looking at right here, and they actually have a lot of great engines. Now they've had some problems along the way. We'll explain why that is and which particular kind of problems we're dealing with, but clearly the engine in this car here, which is a Porsche 911 of the 996 generation, because you can simply tell by the kidney style headlights there, the soft chin on the spoiler, this style of door handle, and as well that tail light all gives this car away that it's a 996 generation, which was built from 97 all the way up to about 2004. And here's the next generation of Porsche that carries the slightly updated, upgraded, and more reliable engine than that early generation 996. And we're talking about 2005 to 2008. Things were vastly improved over that first generation of the 996. The M97 runs from 2005 to 2008. It's a fairly simple modular engine. Even if it does fail, it's relatively affordable. There's lots of them out there, so you can retrofit them out. But they are a relatively simple engine to maintain, even for the home do-it-yourself. Or the new engines and the new 911s are much more difficult. So this represents a durable, reliable workhorse. Certainly, if you're just driving it on the street, it works. And it's not unique to just the 911. Also, the Porsche Boxster here, and you could tell this is the later generation of Boxster. As you can see, the upgraded headlights. Clearly, the first generation Boxster had the kidney style headlights like that other 911 did. You also have the Carrera S style wheels. Of course, you got the 997 generation of mirror, and of course, this vent is a giveaway that this is the later generation of Boxster. We're talking about the 987 right here, and it carries that M97 engine under the hood. Instead of the 996, which carried a 3.4 up to 3.6, now you have a 3.6 up to 3.8. You can get power ranging from 325 horsepower up to about 408 horsepower, depending on the state of tune and which particular model. And that's in the Porsche 911, the Boxster, and the 987s have a slightly detuned version, smaller displacement. But Porsche added in later generations, VarioCam Plus gives you a lot better breathing, a little more performance, as well as they've modified the intermediate shaft bearing on many of these engines throughout the years. 2005 still carries the older generation like the 996, but as you get into the 2006, you're going to get a slightly improved, and honestly 2009 gives you a full enhancement to the bearing assembly. The intermediate shaft bearing was a problem through and through, and then in 2006 they upgraded to a larger single row bearing that was less prone and less likely to fail, made the engine a lot more reliable. Now there are a few problems along the way with some of these earlier generations. You've got to remember earlier teething problems with some early generation 996s, but as the generation moved up, as you got newer, you got better and more reliable and better performance. For example, what kind of issues can you actually anticipate with some of these M97 engines? You can get cracked cylinders, and a lot of that usually just comes if you run the coolant too low, or there's sometimes the water pumps lose an impeller. The impeller goes through the cooling system, locks up, and then prevents that particular cylinder from cooling off, and you get hot spots, and that can crack the cylinder liner. Crankcase issues as well. And I've seen actually very few early generation flat six engines that don't have a little bit of chain noise. They say try changing the oil. Otherwise, you're basically talking about lazy timing chain tensioners. So generally speaking, other than a few nickel and dime issues, the odd sensor here or there, these cars are built quite durably, and you can run them hard, a lot harder than you would ever dare to run a Toyota or a Honda. And generally they're a performance engine, performance car, fun to drive, represents great value, and just stay on top of your maintenance. Watch for the signs and symptoms and basically be ready to fix it. Other than that, they're quite reliable, and the M97 engine in any of these mid-2000 generation 911s and Boxsters represent amazing value. And we have here a flaming Volvo right here. As we notice right there, the Volvo, we're talking about the T5 and T6 engines that have been around for a while. So we're talking about engines from 2001 till now, anywhere ranging from 2 liters to 3 liters of displacement, 220 horsepower, all the way up to 360, depending on the state of tune and which drivetrain we're talking about. But we're talking the S60, XC90, and the V60 like we see right here. Now we have seen Volvos with a few issues, ranging from electrical issues, lights not necessarily working, of course brake noises, and of course tire pressure monitoring system issues, electrical gremlins and the interior as well for some of those features, sunroof issues occasionally, as well as pedestrian warning systems, and a lot of the naturally safety features that are incorporated into the vehicle have caused a few troubles along the way. Generally a fairly durable car though. I mean, they do have some beautiful headlights, the typical trademark Volvo grille on there. Of course, you do have this aggressive looking front spoiler, which makes it look particularly mean right there from the side. It's a great looking profile, and these laser cut rims are just beautiful. Now the inline sixes were always silky smooth, and they were honestly the engine to go with, but even the turbo 4s that are strapped up with supercharging turbo as well as electrification in some cases have also added complexity to these drivetrains. The simpler the better in this case. But overall they're a pretty reliable engine, and you could find used ones like this, beautiful luxury vehicles that fly under the radar, and they have some great drivetrains and technology. What are the few issues you have to be aware of though? There's been a few common issues related to oil leaks, the odd coolant leaks, as well as up here the strut mounts. Of course, strut related issues, meaning you might get banging and clunking in the suspension. Just take care of that if it becomes a bigger issue. And there have been a few comments about transmission problems throughout different generations, but for the most part it's mostly electrical gremlins that are causing the troubles, and the engine themselves are relatively stout. They don't have a ton of problems generally speaking, and this would be a relatively safe bet on the used car market if you want a luxury vehicle and you want something a little more techy and interesting. The Volvos might be your bet. And with all of that said, right there, 2024's most reliable vehicles that you can get this year. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.